Okay, for this video, we're gonna be talking about banks, specifically digital banks. Hi everyone, it's Charm again from Ready to Adult Philippines, a channel about personal finance, entrepreneurship, and adulting how-tos. Imagine lending a stranger 100,000 pesos and he used that money to build his business and he became very successful, and then after 1 year, he returned the 100,000 to you and 200 pesos in interest. Yes, 200 pesos or 0.25% per annum. That's usually the typical interest rates we get from banks. And recently, just this September 1, a lot of banks even lowered their interest rates from the already low 0.25% to 0.125%. Okay, so that's why today we're gonna be talking about digital banks and high-yield savings accounts. So if you're interested in that, then keep watching. So first, let's discuss what high-yield savings account or what high-interest savings account means. Basically, they give you high interest rates. Okay, so what are high interest rates? If you didn't know, when you're putting money in a bank, you're actually letting the bank borrow money from you because that money is not just sitting in a vault. It is being used to their advantage and it is being leveraged. That means that they are using your money to loan out to people and to invest. And whatever they get from those loans and whatever they get from those investments, they return it back to us, the people who have savings account in their banks. And that's basically why we get interests from banks. But compare all these loan rates to the rates that we're getting in return. And honestly, I can't completely blame the commercial banks as well because they have high overhead costs. They have so many branches, they have so many employees and staffs, and all these utilities and expenses that come with having physical branches. Okay, so now you understand what interest rates are and why you get them from your savings account in banks. Now let's talk about why we should care about these interest rates. I've mentioned this before and I'm saying it again, inflation. If you're not still familiar with inflation, basically, the Philippines usually has a 2 to 4% inflation per year. That means your 100 pesos today can only buy you things that are 96 to 98 pesos next year. That means that your money is being eaten up by inflation. And if you're someone who is keeping your money at home, in your cabinets, or in banks that don't keep up with inflation, then your money is losing value every year. So now that we've covered the basics, I'm going to be introducing you to the banks that we're going to be discussing today. First, we have CIMB, which has two savings accounts that we're going to be talking about. First is UpSave and the next is GSave. Basically, UpSave is like the regular savings account and GSave is in partnership with GCash. So you can access it both from the CIMB and GCash app. And then next is we have ING, and they call their savings account ING Savings Account. So these are both digital banks. If you're wondering what digital banks are, they're basically like online banks, but it's more advanced. And when I say that, it means that they don't have physical branches. They do majority, if not all, their banking online. That means from application to approval of loans to depositing checks and depositing and withdrawing cash as well. Yes, you heard me right. These banks only have one main office, and basically you apply online. That means you fill up a form online, you take a photo of your requirements like IDs and such, and then they approve you, they give you an account number, and from there you can deposit to your account. Okay, so don't worry if you're confused about all of this. I hope that it will become more clear as we move on. The reason for these digital banks is that they want to make it more convenient for people, especially for millennials or younger people who are always connected to their phones but might not have access to physical branches. So whether you're anywhere in the world, then you can access your bank. Another is that by keeping their overhead costs low or very minimal, they're able to give their clients, that's us, higher interest rates in their savings. Speaking of interest rates, let's talk about the interest rates of the 3 savings account that I just mentioned. Okay, so regarding these interest rates, please note that they do change from time to time. So if you're not watching this video on September 2020, then make sure to check out their websites. I will be linking them down below for their latest interest rates. For CIMB UpSave, it's currently at 3.0%. And for CIMB GSave, it's currently at 3.1%. And for ING, it's currently at 2.5%. Okay, so at one time, all of these banks were at 4%. So this is really proof that they really change it a lot. Let's move on from the interest rates and let's discuss the maintaining balance. Another great thing about these digital banks is that they have a zero maintaining balance. So you know, in banks, you have like a 5,000, 10,000, or even 25,000 maintaining balance. For these digital banks, you have zero, meaning you don't get charged a fee if you don't have anything in your account. Another great advantage of these digital banks is that they don't charge anything if you move your money from their bank to any other bank. So if you're familiar with online banking, if you're, for example, BDO, if you're gonna transfer to like a BPI, you get a 50 pesos charge. That's the usual rate. Majority of the banks are not charging because of the pandemic, so majority of them are giving it for free until December 31st. So that's really one of the selling points of these digital banks, is that they don't charge transfer fees. So I know the next thing on your mind is, are these banks safe? And for that, I would say yes, they do just operate like a traditional bank in the Philippines. So they are regulated by the BSP. And they are also PDIC insured. PDIC, I've mentioned before, is the Philippine Depository Insurance Corporation. They basically insure your money up to 500,000 pesos. And if you see this sign, you will see this in all of the traditional banks here in the Philippines. So yes, they are being regulated just like any traditional bank. So okay, let's talk about the availability of a physical card or a check. These are some things that are not available for these digital banks. CIMB does have an account that has an ATM card. It's called Fast or Fast Plus account, but they have interest rates that are similar to the bank, usually less than 1%. And the reason for that, I think, is that when you have an ATM card and you are able to use this ATM in credit card terminals, online purchases, and ATM machines, those have charges that are charged to the bank. And because of that, they can't really give us high interest rates compared to the UpSave and the GSave accounts, okay? So again, to clarify, all of these savings accounts don't have a physical card and a checkbook. Speaking of checkbooks, one of these accounts actually accept depositing of checks online, and that is ING savings account. So very simple, you just need your mobile phone and you just need to take a picture of the front and back of the checks against a dark background. And yeah, you input like the amount and where the check is from and some details like that, and you're good to go. It usually clears around the same time as when you deposit a check in a bank, 1 to 2 days for clearing. Okay, so next question is, how do you deposit money? If you don't have a physical branch that you can deposit money to, how can you cash into your accounts? Okay, so let's start with ING savings. Like I mentioned earlier, you can deposit checks, and you can also do bank transfers either through InstaPay or PesoNet. And lastly, you can transfer from your e-wallets like GCash or PayMaya. So for CIMB UpSave, you can also do bank transfer, that's through Dragon Pay, and you can also cash in through 7-Eleven, that's through their click machines. You can also do over the counter, that's through Dragon Pay merchants or banks. And lastly, you can go through Bayad centers. Okay, so that's for CIMB UpSave. Now let's talk about CIMB GSave. Again, you can still do bank transfers, 7-Eleven through click machines, over the counter or Bayad center. I think the difference here is that you can cash in through GCash. So you can transfer money from your GCash account to your GSave account. CIMB GSave is actually that feature in GCash that says save money, if I'm not mistaken. I'm gonna put a screenshot here so that you can check it out. Okay, so I typically suggest for people to use and utilize the savings account for their emergency fund or their emergency savings. So your emergency savings is a sizable amount of money, and if it's just sitting there waiting for an emergency that hopefully doesn't happen, then it would be beneficial for you that they are growing at a really good rate. If that's the case, if you're using it for your emergency fund, then I'm pretty sure that you are wondering how you can withdraw this money. Okay, so I would suggest for you to still keep some money to an account that has an ATM, because for these digital banks, it typically takes you a couple of hours or up to a day to transfer funds. If you want to transfer funds from ING, then you can only bank transfer, and that's only through PesoNet. Okay, that means that, for example, for me, I have to transfer from my ING account to my BDO account, and that's where I can go through an ATM to withdraw some cash. And that can take up to a day or two. For UpSave, you can withdraw your money through bank transfers as well. That's either PesoNet or Dragon Pay. Okay, so for CIMB GSave, you can also do the same, bank transfer through Dragon Pay or PesoNet, but of course, again, you can transfer it to your GCash account. Okay, so if your GCash account has a prepaid card, then you can use that to withdraw through ATMs. Okay, so if you're already wondering again, okay, these digital banks seem like there's a learning curve to it, there's an adjustment period to it. Why would I want to open an account there? As I mentioned earlier, they do have higher interest rates, up to 16 times higher than our typical bank account, and I think that's reason enough. Okay, so to give you guys an idea, I have here some sample computations from their product sheet. For example, you have 100,000 in each of these accounts. Let's start with the UpSave account. For the UpSave account, if you have 100,000 pesos at 3% interest, you get a net interest amount of 200 pesos a month or 2,400 pesos a year. For the CIMB GSave, at 3.1% per annum, you can get a net interest amount of 206 and 66 centavos a month or 2,479.92 pesos a year. And if you put your money in ING savings at 2.5% per annum, then you can get 166.67 pesos per month or 2,000 pesos per year. Okay, so 2,400, 2,479, and 2,000 pesos are so much higher than what we're getting from the traditional commercial banks. So that's why I personally keep my emergency savings in both of these banks. Okay, now that I got you excited and I got your attention on why you should consider opening an account in these banks, let me run you guys very quickly about the requirements. For the CIMB UpSave, you need a government ID, a Philippine phone number, and a Philippine mailing address. And for CIMB's GSave, you need a government ID and you need a fully verified GCash account. So needless to say, you also need a Philippine mobile number for that. And lastly, for ING savings, you need a government ID, a Philippine mobile number, and proof of address. So lastly, I wanna add some fine print and additional perks that they're giving us. So for CIMB, they're actually giving you free insurance if you have at least 100,000 pesos in their account. So they give you an insurance coverage of up to 1 times your ADB. That's the average daily balance. So for example, your ADB is at 100,000, then you get insurance of another 100,000. And this renews monthly. So you need to hit that 100,000 pesos ADB every month for you to be able to enjoy this perk. For CIMB's G-Save, it has a fine print. If you do not upgrade it to G-Save Plus, meaning you created your account in GCash and you did not download the CIMB app, that means you only have the basic G-Save account. It will be limited to 1 year, and you will have a 100,000 limit for your cumulative deposits. That means that you really have to download the CIMB app for you to be able to enjoy unlimited account validity and no cap on your deposits. Okay, so that was the overview or quick comparative analysis of the 3 accounts. Okay, to summarize and to give you what I think, as much as I encourage people to download these digital banks and to make use of them because they are great to keep up with inflation, I do think that we still need to maintain commercial banks or traditional banks because, like I mentioned earlier, these digital banks do have their limitations. So with that, I'm gonna segue to telling you guys that my video next week, I will be breaking down all my bank accounts, my financial system, my cards, and how I track my expenses. So I've been getting that request a lot. So that will be the video for next week. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you get notified when that video comes out. And of course, if you found this video helpful, then please like it. It really helps out the algorithm and my video and my channel a lot. So thank you very much in advance for hitting that like button and making it turn blue. So that's the video for this week. I really think that us being in a digital age and moving forward with fintech or financial technologies, we shouldn't be too afraid of these apps and financial institutions as long as we do our due diligence that they are indeed legitimate and they are safe. Okay, so watching videos like these, I hope really help you guys out and answer your questions about these digital banks. And I feel like the majority of the source of our fear is really because we don't understand it. And that can be solved by going out there and learning more about these products and services. I know that adulting's already hard, but personal finance doesn't have to be. This has been Charm again from Ready to Adult Philippines, and I will see you on my next video.